Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I am Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Vanucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
Give or take?
Yeah. At least, about 40 years.
It might be 39 or 38, but it's really close to 40
The
now.
way Sam answered that, it sounded at least like 40 years.
I think it's close to 40.
Well, it could be more than 4, but I don't think so.
At least I knew you around grade 5, grade 6, right? Was that fair? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
There you go.
Yeah, because that would have been grade 5, grade 6 is when your time in the 100-meter dash still matters. Right? That's kind of the time when that it still matters, I think, is when I met you, I think. I think that's one of the first discussions I remember having with you was, wait, how fast do you run the 100-meter? Right? Like something like that. That's what I remember. I don't know if you remember. You probably remember more than me, actually. Oh man, that is hilarious. So Kenny, I brought Sam on so we could talk about the 100-meter dash.
Well, apparently, I was trying to read into
and
it.
how important it is.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to think
how
if one
important
of the
it
two of you
is.
had a better time.
Yeah.
I felt like Phil probably had a better time.
Yeah.
That's why I was rubbing it into Sam. I'm thinking it's a little shallow.
Honestly, it might be the only thing in my life that I had anything better than Sam, and I actually don't remember whether I did or not. My bet is
You weren't faster
not.
than me. No, you weren't faster.
See, so I don't know why you brought it up because that's
But
He was a better writer. He was definitely a better writer. A different, for sure. I'll
But he
give you
couldn't
that.
run fast, so who cares?
I think that's it. I will say this about Sam is I think Sam was a better athlete. He was definitely a better scholar in school. He is 100% a better musician than me. So I think I probably sing better than you, but that's about it, I think. And I have more podcast episodes than you, but I think that's about it.
There you go.
Yeah, but I'm kind of excited. So for listeners, Sam Wong is on. I'll get him to introduce himself. I have known Sam a very long time. It's a little weird to see him in grown-up eyes, because we were kids and we grew up together. Sam's kind of been. I'll fill in a couple of blanks, but I'm sure I've missed some stuff along the way. But Sam's kind of been around. He really seriously. A great musician, pretty good athlete, pretty great dad, pretty great husband, super smart guy, and he's got kind of a wealth of knowledge. We thought we'd get him on today to talk about a bit of AI, what it means for the industry. Sam's actually reached out a bunch of times, and I had said to him, "No, small guys, we're not ready. Everyone's worried about." Making sure they survive. So that was last year. And there was a lot of conversations about, look, can we pay bills? Can we survive? We just heard a state of the industry that talked about how small business is losing money kind of hand over fist every day. But I think it's time because AI is kind of a big category for us. It's an area where I think, and Sam may correct me, but I think it's an area where we can grow if we learn to embrace it in the right way. So anyway, Mr. Wong, it's kind of amazing to have you on this thing. It's weird to have you and Kenny together, but I keep saying that because I keep meeting people from past lives and bringing them on the show. So in any case, I will shut up. I would love it if you did an intro. And then we'll kind of like pick it up and go from there. And I am sure both Ken and I have like 10,000 questions. So, yeah, go ahead, take it, Sam. It's all yours.
Sure. No, it's an honor to to hang out with you and Kenny in this format. I do a lot of speaking around data and analytics and AI, especially being the hot topic. And I've been living and breathing in data and analytics and AI for the last 20 years and in different industries, and finally get to move into more of the CPG side and cross over to you, Phil, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm at Marc Anthony Group right now. So we're the creators, not me, but we're the company's the creators of the White Claw and other great brands in alcoholic beverages and now in non-alc as well. So interesting what the industry is doing with AI and in all sizes. So not just big enterprise companies, but how can AI help small, medium businesses as well? And for me, there's an affinity to small, medium businesses. I always felt like in data and analytics, it seems like it's always the big companies that get all the attention of how they can use it to their benefit, and everything's priced kind of like for enterprises, but there's actually a lot of opportunities to leverage the technology and the capabilities and even the skills for small and medium businesses, right? So, happy to really talk about how it is relevant and how it can make a difference.
Can you do you mind rewinding a little bit, because you've been quite a few places, and I think so. Data and analytics is something that small, medium, they want and they can't have, and I think you actually tap quite a few, because you spent some time, I think in insurance, if I got that right, and then also in real estate as well, which I think is really important as well, Sam.
Yeah, so I have a very diverse sector background, everything in between, either even consulting for some big companies, Fortune 500. But even when I was at IBM briefly, my portfolio was around helping businesses use analytics more effectively, including looking at a segment that got overlooked, which was small, medium businesses. So actually designing solutions that really would resonate with that clientele. And I think what is more available for small and medium businesses is that more things are subscription based, right? So you don't need to buy like this much software with this many licenses and at this much capital to get going. You can buy things at a subscription level per user, and with cloud and different capabilities, you can easily scale with different kind of technology to use. And I think that's a big difference than 10 years ago. You couldn't do that. Things were priced at 100 seat, 200 seat, 500 seat, and with things now, like more and more vendors are targeting single tenant and or multi-tenant with a few users to get started. And I think that is something that if you kind of price yourself out saying, that kind of capability is not really for me, you're missing out on some of the technology and even resources that you can go after at a fractional services model.
I love it. I love it. So as we're kind of like unraveling this a little bit, what do you see from this industry? Like I'm a huge fan of AI, right? Like I think I've embraced it. We use it. We use it predominantly. We use it in generating content. So a lot of generative AI, whether it's the most obvious things around content, long form, short form content. I've certainly used it for things like video, which I really love. I love it for as well. So I think there are some of those things. Do you see places where there's uptick and then places where businesses are kind of missing out, like any holes that people should be thinking about?
I think that's sort of where I want to go before you answer, Sam, is that I think this is because I'm not the techie of the three here. I can use technology, especially if Phil shows me how to use it. but I'm not the techie. So to me, like the questions are always the same. Like when we say AI, what are we talking about? Are we just talking about sort of the chat GBTs of the world? Are we talking about things that generate other types of content, video, pictures? I know people that are doing it for developing packaging. I don't care what it is, but in terms of the definitive CPG world, like maybe even start from there first. Like, what are we actually talking about? Because we can get into AI. And I just don't want people like me who just think, okay, so what they're talking about is there's this thing, chat GPT, that must be what they're talking about. Or there's some robots going mental and we're all going to end up in a Terminator, within the next 10 years. One of those two things is happening. Either we're all going to write neat things or the computers are going to take over and we're all going to be dead.
Yeah, and it's perfect segue because I think most people's context for AI is what fills in generative AI, which is all this chat GBT,
right?
That's right.
Mid Journey. You hear all these things about LLMs, right? So it's really about creating content to help, again, text, video, voice, sentiment analysis, creating images, things like that. And that's what people see the most, but there's actually more to it. There's a lot of things around with machine learning, things around, let's say, predictive AI, right? So using it for forecasting, anomaly detection. So those are the things I also do as well. It's not just the generative, it's also, more the traditional components of AI and machine learning. And those are things that I like to blend the two, where there's use cases that make sense, right? Where one feeds the other. But again, it depends on the use case. And there's different ways to solve a particular use case for different industry, different department requirement, different scenario, right? So it's really deconstructing, well, what would you use that kind of technology for to solve that problem? So Kenny, to your point, most people will think of AI as ChatGPT. Unfortunately,
Right.
it's way more than that.
But I guess so that sort of is always the question. So when we're doing a podcast like this, you're doing this for the benefit of me, just so we're clear. I mean, our users are going to get some. This is mostly for me because I told Phil, find someone to explain, AI to a dummy like me, and then we're all good to go. Because we'll go to the lowest common denominator, me. So what I'm trying to understand, even from the perspective of the world we live in, probably most of our audience, if you're a $500,000 company to, let's say, a $10 million company, so very small to starting it into medium, what are we talking about here? Like, what is this? Like, because you're right. I mean, and I say chat GPT because that is what the media focuses on. That's when we talk AI, that seems to be where we go, or we go right to Terminator. Like there doesn't seem to be anything in the middle. Do you know what I mean? Like it seems to be so skewed to either something that's pretty cool and can do things, or we're all going to, the computer's going to take over. Which I don't know how we get so, but that's where we go.
Yeah, I think TV and film, we grew up with a lot of that, especially Terminator. I remember Bill and I probably watching it in his basement, right? In our youth, right? So, and that's kind of melted in a lot of people's mind. People always talk about Skynet or something like that happening, right? But again, there's so many different components within AI. It's such a wide discipline, and so that's why I always tell people it's not just the generative AI component, which is the sexiest piece. Where it's tangible. People can see it being the outputs, right? The interaction of it. But there's a lot of math behind it. Sorry, math is not sexy, but there's a lot of math behind AI and machine learning, a lot of statistics, right? And that, fundamentally, that's where it all came from, right? So using it to, do predictive modeling, right? Forecasting, a lot of that is, decision tree analysis. There's a lot of math behind it, and that's where a lot of that foundation is, and that's where a lot of tools are leveraging that capability. You see it more in tools like, for instance, planning tools, right? There's a lot more there. It's AI powered. All it meaning is that it's giving you more predictions, prescriptions, right, of what your data's telling you what's causing the anomalies, right? And so to me, those things are more practical in a lot of kind of like, in supply chain and finance, in kind of where you need to work with data, right?
Right.
The other side is more on the creatives, right? With marketing, with sales, helping you write pitches, helping you summarize a video, of a customer panel, a consumer panel, right? And saving you hours, right? So those are different classifications of usage of AI, but they're very important, can be used in different capacities and different roles.
Well, I'm sure intertwined. And I think I guess the challenge that I sort of have myself is that if we all talk just generative, that's great. But let's say I'm a small business in the $1 to $2 million range, and I would love to do more analytics. I'd love to get into my data more. Well, I mean, I can phone IBM, I can phone SAP, I can phone these companies, but I'm on the hook for now. Like you said, I could be into the hook for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5C, 100C of costs. So what do I have? Like if I want to do more analytics as a small business, but help me plug in some data and try to figure predictive, my forecasting, or what do I think might happen, is what's out there? Like what do I have access to, and how do I access it? I guess I'm putting you on the spot as I'm trying to understand more on that side. Like what are you telling me that I can do, and how do I do this?
So if you think of analytics, look, analytics has different levels, right? And most people are familiar with is what we call descriptive analytics, which is like reporting, like what happened, right?
Right.
And that's the easiest way to digest. Like it's stating a fact. Hey, my numbers said this, my sales were this, my orders were this, my expenses were this, right? So that's kind of that first level of analytics. And there's a lot of tools that are like a Tableau, your Power BIs, right? Those are very common now. They're very easy to use for again, single license, right? Yeah. I have flat file data, export it, and I can analyze that. And a lot of tools are now embedding kind of predictive components to it, or even maybe anomaly detection. So more and more of these tools are offering kind of built-in AI capabilities because everyone's doing it, and so they have to improve their product. So if you want to get single tenant tools like that, those are there. Now, if you have, let's say, access to even like students, right? Studying statistics or data science and things like that, and you bring them on board, for an internship, they're using tools like they're writing code, right? Python, R, SQL, right? And so they're using those kinds of languages to kind of query data and write models with it. And so that you don't need software. Like it's the open source, right? There's a lot of open source content out there, both even on the generative AI side as well as a lot of accelerators that are out there, right? So if you want to go light, right, and bring in some smart young hungry folks that you can oversee, you can throw them at problems. They're so advanced. Phil says, but our academics is like nowhere near what kids I've been working with in the last 20 years, like out of university or in university that I've hired. And these whether they're co-op students or new grads, the amount of tech and the amount of working with data is just so native to them, and you can easily leverage that capability and bring them into the team. Now you marry that with the experience of the industry of the business that you bring, and you partner that together, and it's a very potent combination.
Oh, for sure. And I guess I come from a buyer's perspective. So in the old days when I was buying, you would bring me Nielsen data and things like that. And I'd look at people like Phil would bring it into me. I think, quite frankly, I don't give a shit. You know why? Rear view mirror. I've already seen that. I've been there. That's all you're telling me is what happened. Tell me what's going to happen. I said, if you want to be really on it and really help me, because I'm trying to understand that. I can look at the data that's happened in the past is where we've been. And that's wonderful. But I would love to be able to predict. So I was always trying to do that, but I only got one little noggin, right? And we didn't have those sort of tools to say, okay, if I did this, what could happen? Give me the 3 paths that it could go down. Because I could do it, but I'd be mapping it. I'll be thinking, well, shit, I think I'm right. I think I've got this read well. I think, you know what I mean? Where the tools now, I'm assuming, are there for me to actually do this.
Yeah, and again, at the end of the day, it's how you structure your data, how clean it is, or how accurate it is.
Exactly.
But
It's
assuming
story.
you have that, whether it's in databases or extracts or whatever, the tools are now more and more intuitive. They'll actually look at trends and actually call them out. They'll actually do forecasting on the fly, and it's built in, so you're not actually paying extra for it, because everyone's trying to not just display what you've done, like not a business intelligence tool or a reporting tool. It's actually trying to do the predictions and prescriptions, because everyone's asking me, well, what caused me to be a decrease in sales in that role? Is it that region? Is it that product? Is that
Right.
sales?
What was
right?
it?
Right. So the tools are there now to allow you to access that and point that out, because that's where it's been going, and it's going to continue. It's going to become more natural. You'll see more natural language where you can actually ask it the question. So it's more like a chat bot, like these data assistants. Right? That's kind of the next generation that's happening now. Right. Is you can actually natural hey, what was my sales for this month, and why was it down from last quarter, last period, and it becomes more of a dialogue, and that's where we're going, right? And I can totally see that being that type of data assistant as that's part of your ecosystem, where you don't actually have a data person finding that information. If you structure and access your data in a way that that the machine can figure out and interpret it, then it can. But obviously, if you don't do that, it's going to just spit out what it interprets, right? So,
well, and I think you can probably appreciate, we have a lot of listeners are going to be in the smaller size. Data management, how you input data into your systems, the discipline. Quite frankly, I do trust, because I deal with enough small companies. There is no discipline, and what they don't understand is that if you decided to put something in to help you think, it's the old adage of obviously data: garbage in, garbage out. So if it can't figure out what the hell you put in, what do you want it to spit out? And I guess that's what I'm trying to really understand for the benefit of sort of the listenership, for lack, for small, like, I guess I'm still trying to figure out, how do they go about learning this, finding this?
Hey,
you know what I mean? So, like, what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I get it. So let's take a step back, because I think there's a few things, right? One is, if you think of like the analogy at the beginning of this, right? We talked about tools and how difficult it was to get into this, right? So the first thing a small, medium business is going to do is they're going to go, no, it's not for me. It's going to be incredibly expensive or whatever, right?
Or I don't understand it.
So first things first is it can be expensive. It doesn't have to be, because there are quite a few tools. Sam's used a whole bunch of acronyms, which you may know and you may not know. If you've been reading anything about AI, you've definitely run into them. A simple term like open source versus a closed source, right? So open source, it's a new way of doing business, which means the code is there. So kind of like the base programming in one of these models, it's open to, for lack of a better term, it's open to the public, but it's really open to people who understand the code, who can manipulate the code and use it for things. So when you are starting to pick up, if you use simple things like ChatGPT, or you're using, there's so many different models out there. If you're using Character AI or Quillbot or Midjourney or CapCut, any of these things, they use what we call open source, kind of code, right? So your cost comes down. So which allows you to be able to now adopt things for your own usage, right? So the easiest one is generative AI, right? So you want to write something, but you want to write it better. So you go to one of these tools and you say, hey, I wrote it like this. And the machine would go, yeah, but this is a better way of saying it. Or maybe you didn't think about this, or maybe you want to write it in a way that's more salesy, right? There's a feature, there's a benefit, there's an ask, right? Some of those things that we're not always good at. I think the flip side where there's a lot more application for this is, in the same way that we don't necessarily have the words, there are a lot of us that don't necessarily have the numbers, right? And so I think Sam's also talking about, like, guys, when you're forecasting, when you're trying to figure out what you did last month, last year, last 2 years, what it could mean for you next month, next year. There are tools out there now that you can pick up and use that help you start to plug those things in, right? So maybe that kind of helps to package this a little bit better. So when you're starting, I think that's where you start. I threw out a whole bunch of names. ChatGPT is the one that's most common. Character AI, Quillbot, Midjourney, CapCut. I think CapCut is very common. It's kind of a creation or video creation tool. I don't know forecasting tools as well. Sam, do you have any kind of like off the top of your brain that are ones that folks could jump into and kind of like play with? I think because our guys are more, they're, we can tell them how to eat, but they need to know what the fork looks like.
I think that's where I'm going. I don't
want
want
the spoon. What are
I don't want to tell them how to rewrite a blog or things like that, because I think we talk a lot about that. It's no different than when we talk about marketing and everybody talks about, oh, I do marketing, I do Facebook and Instagram. You think, well, that's great, but those are really small components. There's other things you need to do to get there. So the predictive or the forecast type tools are the ones I'd really love to know what is out there, and can someone like me use it?
Yeah, I think the some of the big ones out there, they're available enterprise, but now you're selling them at single seats, like
Thank God,
like IBM Plan Analytics, right, or Anaplan, right? Those are the kind of your big.
Okay.
You've seen those tools, but now they're actually available on the cloud, smaller tenants, right? And you can try them. There's trial license, right? So it allows you to kind of experiment. Am I ready for this kind of maturity, right? And I think that's what makes it easy. Before is that you got to install it, you need servers, you need all this stuff. Don't need any of that anymore, right? So it's cloud-based, you don't have to install anything. You try it out, and it's usually priced at, again, per user basis, right? So those are kind of some of the big ones there. But again, there's always things out there, right? If you have smart people in your organization that are maybe hungry for data or really savvy, let them at it, right? Like, now you got to be careful, right? The deal with open source is that, someone put code out there, it's your risk to use it, right? The same thing with ChatGPT, right? You're throwing things out there, but you want to make sure that you're not maybe throwing something. Hey, here, rewrite my business proposal on how to, acquire XYZ, and then now that's out there. Right? So you got to be very careful with what you seed it with, and then it's the same thing we're doing in our organization. Like, we're trying to protect ourselves. Like, we want to have a safe ground for you to, create campaign ideas about White Claw or some of our brands, but you don't want to do it in an open forum where it now becomes part of the internet, right? So there's ways to, and that's where we create more of a closed environment where you can trust yourself to, be creative in an environment where it knows your data, but it also is not going to publish that data for others to interact with it, right? So, data protection is very important, especially privacy and security. That's just nature now, right? People are stealing things, or taking hostage, right? So how you secure your data is really, really important. How you manage it. You talked about garbage in, garbage out. It's like sometimes people don't think about how they store or capture their sales, their orders, their performance. And honestly, if you have a very good discipline of, the quality of data that you're capturing at the transaction level, or how much attributes you capture, and not have free-form text and things like that, it's going to help you later on when you're trying to figure out why things happen. Because if you structure your data and your data is clean and it's complete, meaning you have, let's say, 10 attributes and they're all filled out and it's not ambiguous, then you can use some of these technologies to actually let you, do machine learning on it and look for trends for you, look for predictions for you, do anomaly detection for you as well, right? So that's why
can I slow you down?
Yeah.
You're too smart. I need to slow you down. So a couple of things. One is, at the beginning of like this kind of little segment, I thought what was really useful is you talked about it being readily available and adding it. So the example I'll give you is if anyone who's listening to this uses Salesforce, for example, Salesforce has something called Einstein, right? And so, I would say the difference is like 5 years ago, you would go out and look for someone to custom add something to your whatever you were using to help you enable a new tool. The new way of doing that isn't to do that. Is what you need to do is now look inside of Salesforce in their ecosystem. They call it an app, but it's really like an add-on, if you will, that allows you to plug in a tool like Einstein so you can go use it, right? And so, like Salesforce, Einstein would be one that you would go, if I want a better sales forecasting tool. So I want to be able to go and see what my salespeople are doing, and I want to be able to predict where they might go or what could come based on the calls that they've made. Salesforce and Einstein could help me with some of those things, which flows into some of this data cleanliness. So hang on to that for 1 second. The other thing I think in there is like Clary is another one that's a really popular forecasting tool. I've kind of heard the name, but I haven't used it. I did look, and it looks like Clary actually plugs into something like Shopify, which many of us use, right? So you kind of go, so again, like where Sam is going with this is, guys, this used to be a thing that you would show up at somebody's doorstep and they go, well, how much blood do you have? Do you have an extra kidney? Do you have, can I take a liver biopsy, so I can mortgage your future? Now you're kind of going into like the Shopify app store, if you will, or the marketplace to go, hey, hang on, Clary's in here. Let me plug it in, right? So if I connect those dots now, what Sam and Kenny are very much about, which I am too, is when you're talking about data cleanliness, you kind of don't want all those kind of like spreadsheets that are farting around your organization as the tool that you want for, a Clary, or you don't want to waste your time on like stuff like that for an AI tool. You may, but you got to pick things that are clean and able to use, right? So like a Shopify generally is fairly clean because it's an enclosed system where you can kind of like, you're getting orders, the orders are getting fulfilled in the background. Shopify is doing a ton of the cleanup for you, right? They're tracking the orders, they're tracking POs, they've got invoices. And so you plug in a Clary to one of these and all of a sudden there is some predictive analysis that's reliable that it can give you, right? So I think those things, to kind of close that together, I think you're hitting on something now with security. I think that's really important.
Yes.
I think where I haven't gone with that yet is usually what I tell students and I tell new brands is, if you're going to use predictive stuff, you need to know what the basis is, right? Like what, are you using GPT 3.5? Like what kinds of learning, like where's the code coming from? And is it open source? I think are big things because they tell you what kind of information you're using or what the predictive kind of capability is. That's part of it. And then can you talk a little bit more about the security thing, Sam? Like, so let's say I plug in Clary or I plug in Einstein to my stuff, right? And so I'm happy as a clam because now, my salesperson who was out there, and now I'm starting to see predictive analysis that says this salesperson is going to be flat. They're not going to do, or there's another guy who's a rocket ship and I got to figure out how to give him more tools so he can take off in his, because the AI says that he's going to go crazy. What implication does that have? Like, where do I need to worry about, like, am I doing this in public or behind a glass, like a full floor to ceiling glass?
Yeah. Like, am I fully exposed to what's going on here?
Yeah.
Well, for systems like Salesforce, right? It's obviously more, they're a big brand. They're protected, right? Your data is protected. It's part of their ecosystem, and yeah, you definitely can leverage, certain ERPs or CRMs like Salesforce, where you can have those add-ons. Now, the only caveat is that you're working with the data that's in that system, right? So you're not combining data in your financial systems and your maybe your ERP systems or other. Or your POs or whatever, but if you're all that data that you need is in that system and they have those add-ons, absolutely it makes sense. And they are doing more. Like all these companies are trying to sell that, or they're trying to invest, like Salesforce. They absolutely, and I do work with them too, and they are investing in generative AI into their product, right? So that the data is generally secure because it's in their ecosystem, right? When I'm talking about data security, I'm in the scenario I just talked about, it's more like when you're using things that it's not locked down, it's open, right? It's you have to be very, very careful, right? This, everything about cookies and everything about, tracking and all that kind of stuff like that. If you're outside of your protected domain, if you have one, that's out there. So you have to be very conscious about it. So like some people would do is they're using OpenAI, or like whether it's ChatGPT or an OpenAI like product, they just got to be more anonymous. They just say, pretend I'm a beverage company that blah 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 blah. Instead of using your name, they will fake it.
I am a multi-million-dollar beverage company who may or may not be making White Claw.
Just saying.
Right. So I mean, that's how you can get around it, right? Because you want the content, but you don't want to share information about that's important to your organization that you don't want out. It's basically saying, if someone read what you wrote, would that be okay? And if they say no, then maybe you shouldn't ask it, right?
That way, or you should. Correct.
Right. Especially if it's sensitive or it can be used against you, right? And so I think there's this big push around security of data and privacy now, even with, in marketing technology, right? There's a lot of things about opt-outs and I want you to expunge all my data in your company with, all this regulation in Europe and in the US and even in Quebec has some new regulation, right? So there's a lot of data privacy components too, because people are just worried about their data being out there being used nefariously.
So for guys listening to this, right? Like what we're now talking about is, when you were in a Salesforce, you're using Salesforce Einstein, cool. You're in a closed environment that's relatively safe because Salesforce doesn't necessarily want their stuff out there either. But let's say you decide, I'm a marketer, so I'm always going to come back to generative AI. Right. But let's say I make a video about one of my clients that contains a proprietary process to which I make a recipe, right? So let's say I'm making an alcoholic drink that looks very much like a White Claw sort of drink, but I make it different, and I don't want White Claw to know about it, right? But I put something in it that they don't know about, but I shoot a video and I decide I need to convert this video, or I need subtitles for this video. So I'm going to go online and find a translator that allows me to translate that, right? So everyone would go, this is wicked, right? Because I don't need to pay for this anymore. I'm going to throw it in this thing, upload it to the cloud. It's going to translate it for me. The problem with that stuff is now it's out there, right? And then you can't unsee that, right? As you just loaded the video with your with your proprietary ingredient and the way you mixed it into a cloud-based tool that gave you subtitles, but also gave everybody else your subtitles, right? So I think that's, Sam, is that kind of accurate? Is what you're sort of talking about here? Is you got to
exactly. Like if you don't want to, if you don't have a secure environment where this is local to you and it's blocked off, like for instance, we're trying to create kind of a protected environment where people in our marketing departments can actually, be safe, then that's what you want to do, right? Or else you take the risk and you have a policy that you say, hey, use at your own risk, but do not upload anything that's sensitive, to our organization, right? And so that's what you guys got to be aware of. And that's the balance between costs, right? And, risk, right? And for small, medium businesses, cost is a big factor, right? And you just have to manage it and say, is that something worth it, or is it there's no risk? Meaning,
it's also the understanding, though. I don't think people understand that. I don't think they get the closed versus open and the security. I think people just go on, they do shit. They think it's theirs
because it's wonderful.
Well, because it's so easy. If I go to ChatGPT, if I sign in on my account, obviously it's mine, right? I did it. I got an account. It's obviously mine. So whatever I do or say, that's all mine. Nobody can see it. Nobody can use it because it's mine.
But you know that's not true, right?
I get that, but you know, okay, but three
Because
people
you didn't
here
read the
know
fine
that.
print.
But you know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
3 people here know that. What do most people think? Well, shit, I'm the one that did. It was my account. I signed on. I did. It's mine. And maybe not even understanding that. Just so we're clear, this stuff is out there now. Well, what does that mean? It's
It just
not
means
out
that they're
there. It's in
trained.
my account. I signed back on. It's there.
Yeah, the data is being
Yeah,
trained
well.
on, right? It's like that's why companies are buying data because everyone's trained on the same stuff. Well, now I forget who bought access to Reddit, right? And I'm going to be able to take all the Reddit content and learn off of that.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, that'd be a scary thought on a good day, but that's okay.
Yes.
There's a lot of shit on Reddit that
Discord or whatever, right? It's like people are going to buy data so they can train it
right.
into, because they can brand it. Hey, we've trained it in a different way that that company didn't do it or that company didn't do it. Right? So, because it's something that again that productivity savings is huge, right? 100%. You guys see it right now. You're saving hours, maybe even days, in some of the stuff you can do: transcription, analysis, summarization, copywriting, right? All of that stuff. But you just have to know the ramifications of it. Is if you don't care, it's just words. That's fine, right? Leverage it. But if you're say, hey, help me write a proposal about how to acquire that company, might not be the best thing out there.
The number of people who have,
I'm telling you right now, that's what most of this shit's being done. I don't think people understand what this is doing.
You know what?
You're writing
in the last couple of months, right? The number of people who have used this stuff either to analyze what's in their legal agreements,
exactly,
or to rewrite sections, and you're just going, God, I hope you did that.
Uploading spreadsheets to say, hey,
being
tell
safe
me what
isn't
happened
logging
here.
in, right? Like that's not the some of that stuff is very alarming, right?
You really want that out there. I mean, again, or do you understand? Maybe it's even this. Do you understand what that means? Like if you upload your spreadsheet with all your sales data the last year and ask something to sort of analyze it and figure it out or give me something on it, what does that mean? Like what system are you on? Are you protected? Are you closed? Or have you just basically told everybody something?
Yes.
Whatever that was. I know, but that's kind of, and I think again, it's the using of the tools. These tools are critical to go forward. And I'll tell you what, I wish in a lot of ways I had, when I was buying even, more tools that would have allowed for predictability and forecasting that could have thought faster.
Yeah.
Because I did a lot of that. But, again, I'm guessing on, my mind has only got so much capacity and I don't know exactly what I'm doing. And I think it's like anything. It was trial and error and I probably did okay overall. But if I had a couple extra minds, like a tool that was like 5 other people in the office with me, but in one little tool, it would have been such a cool world. But I don't want anybody else knowing this shit, right? This is not for public sharing. I wanted to, that's my stuff.
So having said all of this, do you see what's kind of the, I don't know if you have an answer for this. Knowing you're a smart guy, you probably have an answer for this. But are there places where there are tools that are underutilized for small medium?
Love that.
Right. Like I feel like generative AI stuff is kind of on point. Like, small businesses have figured out they can write using this. Probably emails is where they've closed a lot of gaps already. Yeah. But are there places that small medium, needs to think about that they're not looking?
For sure. I think, and I remember a few years ago, I was actually coming up with kind of a targeted analytical platform that's really tailored to, under 100 people, under 50 size organizations, right? It's like, and it's very interesting. I actually went to a small medium business summit in the US just before COVID, right? Literally just before COVID. And we actually went to kind of use it to educate people about how to use analytics. What's predictive, analytics, right? Not even talking about AI, but what's predictive analytics and how can it help you? And just the amount of people when we surveyed, like these were hundreds of people that came through our door and signed up for trials, was most of them never heard of any of these tools. Like very common tools that if you work in a large company, you know a lot of these tools, right? And most of them have no idea what these were, which meant the literacy, like what I call maybe data literacy, is massive opportunity to really help, these companies, right? Just teaching them how to analyze data, how to use tools to elevate them. Not only what I'm doing, but just again, what is it? What am I predictive? How can I look for anomaly detection, right? Mm-hmm. And think that way as opposed to just did I make money that month or not, right? There's more things, right? So it's really about the literacy of using data as a foundation first, and then a lot of tools that you can then use over time to improve that literacy. Right. To me, it's more fundamental to that and less about the technology, actually.
I think maybe that's the exciting part, though, because, when we're talking companies of 50 to 100, probably 60, 70% of the business in this country are between, the 5 and 15. Never mind, like 50 to 100 is already large. You might even almost have a human resource department or whatever we call that today, department, or you might have this sophistication, but there's so many businesses in that 5 to 15 that if they just knew a little bit more about their data, what their store was actually selling or how it looked, or could organize it in a method, and this is where these tools I think are going to be huge, is it changes the game for a lot of these people, because you can start to play like the big guy even though you're a little guy.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, even like
big guys always have the money and the tools, always had access, could develop the shit out of things. Little guys can't.
But that's why you can buy things now that offer that as a service already, right? And I think that's why, if you just have to be aware, you just have that literacy,
exactly,
right? And that will open the doors for finding tools that can do certain things, like even like, hey, product placement in a store, like there's actual science to like to that, right? But you don't have to build it, like it's already been built and you can just leverage it, right? And
that's right.
There's more and more of those things, like in stores, right? Like online stores, right? If you're in the Shopify world, right, there's going to be things you can buy to offer a certain service and attach it to your platform, right? That's going to become more and more. Not only is it a business, but it's also a service for SMB,
right? I think that's why we wanted to have you on, is really to get down that side too, is just to show people that, listen, first off, the tools out there, there are tools out there. They're finally to the point where there might be single use. You don't have to have 75 licenses. You don't have to spend, you don't have to mortgage the house and then try to mortgage the house again to get someone to teach you what you just mortgaged the house for, right? Because it's a complexity. There is stuff out there, but really focus privacy, how you construct data so that, cleaner in, cleaner out, the usual. So I'm glad you came on to sort of walk us through a little bit. I'm sure you created way more questions than anything else. Like, I'm sure we're gonna have users being the same as me, thinking, okay, what? Okay, and what am I doing now? What was I? They're gonna be rewinding, thinking, "What? Okay, did you tell me anything? Where am I going?"
That's the part 2, right? It's the tag to come back and answer all the questions, right? There'll be an AMA, right? There you go.
No, that's
going to be part 2, or 3 or 4. You might be a regular.
I actually think you should be a regular, because I think to come back even like once a quarter, so you can talk about like what's new, what's different. Like.
It changes so fast. It's crazy. Like, I've been around obviously in data, and just the evolution, it's just crazy, and it's going to continue. And there's going to be new stuff and new tech and new ways of using it. And so it's interesting, because for us old fogies, like, we got to stay on top of stuff. We can't kind of ride off in the sunset. Like, you got to stay on top of what's going on. Exactly. It's like another discipline that just came out of nowhere, right? So.
There's no sunset. Like, if you're like, I think I keep saying this, right? Like, I think if you're in your 50s and you think you're retiring, think again. Like, it's not.
You're in your prime. You're in your prime.
You know, like
You're just getting to
learn.
Prime. What are you talking about? You're just sneaking up on Prime.
Well, no, he's older than us. So
Shut
don't worry
up.
about him,
We're
Sam.
sneaking up on Prime. You're still in the 50s like me.
I'm 2
Doesn't matter
months
what you
older
like.
than you, Phil. What are you talking about?
No, Kenny's much older than us. So, you know.
Hey, you got the same front digit that I do. Same 5.
No, not if you round up. If you round up, I'm 50. You round up, you're the other way. So I'm just saying.
So mean.
I
don't know why you like him, Sam. I don't know. I don't understand.
What is going on behind you there? You got like, this is your man cave, right?
Yeah, it's the man cave office. Yeah, so I built the man cave first.
Is there a
What's the
Stanley Cup
7?
there? Are you hiding a cup in your basement?
Oh, yeah, it's a
Look
Stanley
at that.
Cup. There you go. So,
Look at that.
That's where it went.
That's where it went. That's where it goes in the
It was
off
all
season.
over Reddit. Where did
that's the real one. Yeah, I hijacked it from the curator.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you think that guy with the gloves has it, but it's Sam who keeps it, and then he loans it to the guy with the gloves who walks it around.
That's how it works out. Well, who's the 7 behind?
Oh, it's Roethlisberger's football.
Soccer.
86.
Oh,
Yeah.
Roethlisberger. Okay.
Steelers.
No, he's a Steeler.
He's a
Pittsburgh
Steelers QB. Always loved that guy. So chunky and yet still did so well. But never the guy, not the epitome of not a Brady, not a Mahomes, not a Lamar, like none of that athletic prowess, but the guy could still throw the ball.
He was a gunslinger. He had no fear. He just
he didn't give a shit.
He reminds me, like, to totally date us, right? But he reminds me of like a Kirby Puckett. Do you remember that the Minnesota Twins center fielder? Like, you kind of go like on the radio, like, when we were kids, you listen to the radio and you think this guy's everywhere, and you watch him on TV and you're like, that guy's tiny and he's round. Like, how does he?
He was pudgy,
right? But
great ball player.
Everywhere is so like great
ball player.
Great
too short a career.
Yeah.
At least Roethlisberger had a run.
That is true.
He had a run.
Sam,
that was awesome. Thank you
for doing this. We had to slow you down quite a bit.
I know. No worries.
Yeah. So whatever you had in your
for
arsenal for this podcast, you kind of need like 8 more to get all of that out. So
yeah. So next time we're going to pick a tool, one thing, and Sam's going to show us how to do this.
There you go. It's a sampler. This is like kind of like a buffet, right? It's like, we can do all this. Let's focus on an area or a particular use case or something that resonates and go deeper maybe with it.
That's what I'd love to do. So if our listeners do end up having those questions, that we'll pass them on to you to maybe tailor something that's a little
AMA. For sure, we'll do an AMA.
A little cooler. I'd love to do that.
We'll bring a list, and then the next time we do this with Sam, it'll be, hey, how do I get back all the things that I thought were private that are now all over the internet?
Well, there's no undo button
no rewind
or that Batman tool that you can erase yourself in the internet or something.
Oh, man.
Yeah, or we need that drug. I saw that you can go back in time, and then you can delete from there. We're just waiting for that to happen. Then we're good to clean it all up. Good luck.
Buddy, thanks a lot. Thanks for doing this.
That was a pleasure meeting you. Thanks very much for doing that.
Yeah. And then we'll talk to you soon again.
Will do, man. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
My friend, take care. Phil, you hang on.
Bye, Sam.
Sam, take it easy, man. Oh, yeah, he needs to come back because there's 14 courses in this one. I don't think people get it, Phil.
I was trying to slow him down, right? Because I think he, like, in that first 15 minutes, I think he covered like 8 different things. So
and it's too high level.
I did want to slow him down, right? Because
Yeah.
he's definitely. I feel like I'm kind of up to speed in this stuff, and I feel like he's like right up at the front.
Well, how do you think I felt? Because I'm thinking, okay, listen, forget the ethereal. Like, give me a real lifer, because I mean, again, I think we all know it's no different. A cart came after this, and the car came after a horse. Yeah, we get all that, and we're going to use this technology, and it's going to be invasive, and it's going to be everywhere. But we better understand what the hell we're doing with this, or how to use this, because there's a lot of, as we've heard, the privacy thing. There's a lot of dangers in it, but they don't have to be danger where we're all scared shitless to go outside and play in the park. It's not that danger, but you got to be careful. Like, you got to really understand what you're doing, think it through.
I think in this one, the the cloud is not necessarily your friend here, right? So I think anyone who's kind of going out and going, let me search for an online tool I can upload. Anytime that you need to upload a file to the cloud,
maybe you should think
like
twice about it, right?
the site, I think you need to stop and think about, hang on a second, there's something secret in here, or is it just like a welcome paragraph to an email that you, me, or 18 other people could send, right? So no biggie, no biggie. But if it has a secret ingredient, if there's a custom bespoke anything in it, you stop.
You got to be cautious, buddy,
before you go and.
Phil, I know people who are using it for this. They're basically loading spreadsheets of data, of sales data and margin data,
alarming,
and saying, listen, help me do some predictive, help me summarize this. And I'm thinking, if you're going to do that, no cloud, no nothing. You need everything built in. This is old school, writing it down in a book and putting it in the house.
Or you need to buy it, or you need to spend a copious amount of time reading the terms and conditions, right? Exactly. Like really no farting around, right? This is no different than, if you listen to the episode with Hope Island and Hope said, if you built a logo inside of Canva, you're probably screwed, right? Like, so this is the same thing. So you just need to, the cloud and AI is wonderful for many things. Some of these things it is not. So you just need to know what you truly own and what you
not to be scared, be thoughtful. Yeah. Mike Nunn went through this with us, even like all these little things.
That's right.
It's just really understanding. And I guess that's a problem. Like we've been so used to just basically, do you what?
Yeah.
Nobody read past do you, just click it because we need it.
No.
Do you agree to terms and conditions? Yeah.
No.
And I do that. Because at the end of it, you can't opt out.
Yeah.
But you might not want to opt in.
Yeah.
Like you got to make sure it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was really good. I'm glad we had him on.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. We got to go. Next call.